Hello there and welcome to a very, very special boxing preview with oddschecker and talkSPORT Bet. Man, we've got a juicy show packed for you right now, and I'm joined by betting expert and analyst Pete Morris, and I'm also joined by talkSPORT's very own, he's well connected, he's well respected, Adam Catterall. How are you boys? You both well?
Yeah, good, thank you. Glad to be here.
So, mate, thanks for inviting us on.
Honestly, it's good to have you both on, and it's going to be a good show, as I say. I mean, the history runs deep on this one. The build-up has been fierce, and the weight, well, we'll get onto the weight. We'll get onto it all, we really will. But there's a nice welcome offer we've got for you as well for new customers. 18 plus, of course, and you can maximum stake £1 on it, but 30 to 1 for a Eubank win, 40 to 1 for a Benn win. Why wouldn't you look at that? New customers only, terms and conditions apply, and of course, gamble aware. But please, guys, check that out. Now, with all that being said, let's get into it. I mean, Ad, I'm going to start with you because you've been, I mean, it's 2 years in the making, this fight, eh?
Yeah, 2 and a bit now, yeah.
Yeah, and you've been following it since its inception, really. What are your thoughts on the fight in general as we get a little snigger from Ad? What are your thoughts on it?
If we're brutally honest about it, I don't think we get to this point without these two gentlemen holding these surnames, because with all due respect to Conor, he's been a welterweight for the majority of his career and he hasn't really gone through the processes of achieving something at a world level. He hasn't challenged for an area title or a British title or a European title. Whereas Chris has challenged for a lot of those and come through successfully on some of them. He used to be British champion at 160, where they're fighting at the weekend. He's probably done the majority of his better work at 168 up at super middle. Challenged for world titles there. Obviously, he's fallen short against the likes of George Groves. So when you actually look at it on paper and you take the names away from it, you think to yourself, how on God's green earth has this fight been sanctioned? Because you've got one guy that's probably still a novice in the game compared to someone who's, I don't want to say vet, but is definitely at the other end of his career, that has been there and done it a little bit more than the other fella. But money talks, doesn't it?
It does.
So there's obviously a few quid in this fight, and nostalgia is always going to sell. And I think it's one of those very unique fights that transcends generations. There's people my age that remember the fight in 1990 and 1993, and my dad, for example, will only remember that. Whereas I think the new age of fan has obviously bought into the way that they're consuming boxing these days, with the likes of the Jake Pauls and all those types of characters coming into the game.
You say as you wince.
Yeah, but this feels like it's somewhere in between all that. So it's appealing to a brand spanking new demographic.
Yeah.
So I'm fully expecting a packed stadium at the weekend, and I'm expecting it to do wonderful numbers on TV and radio as well, with people tuning in just to find out who wins the circus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, circus indeed. And you know what? It's the undertone of the storyline, like you say. Of course, it's a big selling point. Pete, do you echo those sentiments?
100%. Like, this fight does feel like it's almost one step away from Misfits boxing. Like, it is really sort of, you know, this would not be happening in terms of a professional sanctioned bout without those names, without the history, without the legacy. But it's exciting. Like, the build-up's been good, and what's interesting is they're like their fathers. They're polar opposites in terms of their personalities. You know, Conor is, you know, really aggressive. He's a hothead. He talks a lot, whereas Eubank tries to sort of act cool. You know, except when he's hitting people over the head with eggs. But you know, they do have that sort of, you know, that clash of styles, that clash of personalities. So yeah, it's interesting. I definitely echo your comments. It's part of me doesn't like the fight. Part of me is excited to see what happens.
Yeah. I think it is the ultimate fight for the casual fight fan.
Yeah.
You know, if you're into your football at the weekend and you're like out with your pals, you're not going to not want to watch this.
Yeah.
Just because of all the antics, like you've just said, the way that these personalities, they're like oil and water, the way that they mix with each other. There feels like there's animosity there, even though I personally think it's more manufactured than what we experienced in the 1990s. So it does just grab the attention. If you're a purist, it's not Proterbia Bivol, is it? That's not what it is. It's not Fury Usyk. It's not that. And I think as long as that message, from my point of view, being just an old grumpy man, as long as that is portrayed to the audience, then I don't have a problem with everybody having a little bit of fun on.
Well, as long as you
Saturday
don't,
night, as long as it's safe.
Yeah, well, as long as you don't have a problem with that. You know, I suppose what boxing needs to do, you could argue, is be attractive to the casual fan as well. You know, it grows
to the most important fan.
Yeah,
the casual audience is the most important fan. Yeah, you've got hardcores that are a bit snooty. Sometimes I'm that way out, But the casual fan is the most important fan if you want to grow the sport.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. Pete, I'm going to go over to you as our betting expert and analyst. Yeah. Have you seen the odds fluctuate at all? I'm sure you have over the last couple of years, but as we close into the fight, have they gone up and down in anyone's favour?
There's not been a huge amount of change. I think because of the weight disparity and, like you said, about Conor being fairly unproven, I think the bookies have had a fairly strong position in terms of pricing for a while. I think Eubank's been an odds-on, pretty strong favourite for most of the build-up. That hasn't changed a huge amount. I actually think, although he's odds-on, and I think he's about 4-7 with talkSPORT Bet. I think that's about a 60% shot they're giving him. I think that's actually slightly longer than he should be. I think you arguably can make him a shorter favourite, and a lot of that will be because of the sort of recreational money that be coming in, the casual money that be coming in for Conor.
Yeah.
If you were pricing this fight without that sort of level of interest, I think Eubank would be a much shorter favourite than he is.
Without putting you on the spot, has it changed a lot over the 2.5 years? From the original point of the fight where the odds were compared to where we're at now?
I actually don't know off the top of my head.
It feels like it's got closer.
Yeah.
Because when it was originally made, I was like,
no chance.
No chance.
Yeah.
Now, with age and...
That will probably be the trend. I think a lot of money will come in for Conor. And we've seen that the most popular bets and in terms of the most backed of the two fighters has generally been Conor. So I think there's more money coming in for Conor. A lot of that will be sort of more casual fans taking the slightly longer prices that are available. But the money will be driving a lot of that. I think in terms of the general position the bookmakers have, I think it's been fairly consistent based on the two fighters' abilities and what they've done, their experience and the weight difference.
Well, you know what? Perfectly said. As we go into this next bit here, and I'll come to you, Ad. Eubank favourite, okay. Weight. Yeah. I mean, it's been one hell of a controversial issue. I mean, Eubank Sr. comes out and speaks about it as well. Where are you on it all?
On Eubank Senior or everything?
Wherever you want to go.
On Eubank Senior, I actually think there's a lot of substance in what he's saying. Listen, I don't agree with him coming out and obviously berating his son publicly. I think anybody that's a parent, you back your kids publicly, don't you? Maybe give them a little bit of a telling off privately, all those types of things. Yeah. But there's a lot of elements of what he's saying that I actually agree with regarding the safety aspects of the sport. Maybe the language that he's used is a little bit wrong because he was using terms like breaking the rules and all those types of things, and that's incorrect. So what he's referring to is obviously what I was just talking about. You're talking about a relative novice at welterweight, coming up supposed 2 weight divisions, even though he's had his last couple of fights at 154. He's coming up in weight to challenge a former world title challenger at 168 in the 160-pound division. So that's from a Conor point of view. That's a massive leap. It's a gigantic leap in ability, size, all those types of things. He's never really had this pomp and ceremony around an event as well. We're talking fighting in a football stadium, the eyes of the world. This, without Fury coming back, this is the biggest fight on British soil this year. Yeah. There's a lot of pressure to carry into that, especially with the ability level that I've just been referring to. And then you've obviously got Chris Jr., who, is he struggling at 160? Listen, he looks very, very drained at 160 now that he's getting into his mid-30s. And then you've got this absolute nonsense rehydration clause that they're thrown on top of it, which is, the justification is, well, this is what the IBF do. Well, hang on a minute, the IBF have nothing to do with this fight, so why are we putting a rehydration clause on it? At the end of the day, my take on rehydration clauses is that they should all be banned because they just create more danger to a very dangerous sport. There's no need for them whatsoever. Rehydration is key. Hitting that weight should be it. Once on Friday lunchtime or whenever it is, he hits the weight, he should be allowed to go and rehydrate. It's up to then. If you have a problem with the weight, then why are you taking the fight in the first place? They're trying to incapacitate the opponent in order to gain the advantage for their man. However, there is a flip on this. Chris didn't have to agree to it. He's obviously been well paid, hasn't he? So therefore,
I was going to say, why is he?
Well, there's a price on it, and he's obviously chasing the dough.
Yeah. Pete, how do you feel about it? Well, you can go either way as well, about Senior, about the weight itself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a huge problem with Conor coming up. I think I agree with you in terms of he is a fairly novice-y 147 fighter. So, going up 2 weight classes is a big jump and, surprising at that stage in his career. But in terms of the safety aspect, it's definitely more the case of is it safe for Eubank Jr. to be fighting at 160 if he's drained at that weight and the rehydration clause. Historically, what causes injuries and causes problems is when people boil down too much and take off too much weight. Going up, and you might go up in weight and get beat, and that can happen. Obviously, that can have its dangers, but you're not dehydrating yourself. You're not putting yourself in the same sort of danger. So we don't know how dead at the weight Eubank Jr will be. He might be okay at rehydrating 10 pounds, but like you say, he didn't have to agree to it. He must be happy with the money or happy that he can do it and still perform. So whichever one of those two, I think, you have to accept that decision. But as a fight, going back to what we said earlier, it doesn't quite sit with me that, realistically these two guys should be sharing a ring, realistically.
Yeah.
But, it's interesting. I think, Eubank has been boxing at 160, his last 3 or 4 fights?
I think 5.
Five fights?
Yeah.
Is it 5, is it?
And I did see something, I think it was Paul Smith was saying that even after Liam Smith lost in their last fight, in their second fight together, Liam Smith was saying that, he was gutted because he thought that Eubank wasn't sharp, wasn't strong at that weight. So maybe he is struggling at the weight, and maybe, he managed to nick a win against Smith, who's obviously, he's an aging fighter as well. And
in the second one, he was injured.
Yeah.
He'd done his back in the second fight.
Right.
So, you've got stuff like that. So there might be evidence, Eubank, and he hasn't looked as powerful, as sharp in his last few fights. I think his last fight against Shevameta. I think
He didn't look great.
He didn't look great. And that wasn't an amazing performance. So I think, we can get on to my tips in a minute, but I think this is all pointing towards a fairly drawn out fight. I think it could go, the distance, because I don't think, Eubank is the fighter that he was at 160, coming down to 160 or boiling himself down. I don't think Conor Benn's big enough to cause him too many problems. Especially if he doesn't get him out early or hurt him early, Conor Benn really struggles, I think, in this fight. So I think it goes a distance or goes into the second half of the fight and you're looking at sort of late action. But we can obviously get onto the tips in more detail. Whenever you want to. But
Just to add to that, on the way to obviously joining you boys this morning, there was a report coming out that they've agreed to shorten the ring. So Conor Benn put a request in to have the fight take place in a ring shorter than the standard 18 foot, and for some unknown reason, it's been agreed to.
But this is what we spoke a little bit about it. Why is that? First of all, why would he request that in the first place, and why would Eubank agree to it?
Second one, I've absolutely no idea as to why he's agreed to it. The reason why Conor would ask for that is because it suits his style. He wants to get in nice and close. He wants to get hold of his opponent, and he wants to let his fast hands go in the hope that one of those flurries catches Chris. If it's a bigger ring, there's more space there for obviously Chris to get on the back foot and get his jab out and box on the back foot and get out the way of all that.
Yeah.
So by shortening the space, you give more opportunity to get hold of your opponent. That's why he's put the request in.
It's as simple as that.
I can't believe that he's accepted it.
And instantly, Conor Benn's never stopped anybody after the fourth round. So it's his style. He goes out and he's fast and he's aggressive and he goes after you from the first bell. And if it goes late, he struggled in fights that have gone a distance. He doesn't look great. He seems to tire quite quickly. So he's looking to get into him early. And like he said, throw a lot of shots. It's interesting because Eubank isn't really a back foot fighter. No. He's not necessarily going to be. I think they'll both hold their feet. I just think that I don't think Conor Benn will have enough necessarily to hurt him early.
Yeah.
Eubank has shown, other than his first fight with Smith, Eubank has generally shown a fairly solid chin.
Yeah.
He hasn't got the best defence. He can be hit, but he has shown against Groves. He took a lot of punishment and he went 12 rounds. That was obviously a while ago.
Yeah.
But he's generally shown a fairly solid chin. So there's a few interesting variables that you have to weigh up when you're thinking about whether you place a bet on this fight. But one of the things that I'm definitely thinking about is if it goes past those sort of early rounds, I think Conor Benn struggles to win the fight, and I think that Eubank might not be as a big puncher at this point in his career.
Yeah.
And you're looking at a distance fight. You're looking at going to scorecards potentially, which is not what a lot of people are talking about. A lot of the rhetoric's about explosive, knockout.
Yeah.
I'm not really seeing that at the moment.
Do you know what's really interesting? For the record, Adam agrees. Do you know what I find really interesting is both fighters are going to do their homework on each other anyway. Of course they are. But by requesting the ring to be smaller, you fact check that with he's never put anyone down past the fourth round.
Yeah.
Eubank's going to go into this knowing exactly what Conor Benn's going to want to do, even more so now by requesting the ring to be shorter. Does that maybe play into why he's accepted? Because they may have a plan.
Well, as you've just explained, Conor Benn's never showed any other tactic. That's what he does. He's front foot, aggressive, a big ball of energy, and he wings shots away. And regarding his stoppages, he overwhelms people. It's an accumulation of shots. So therefore, that's exactly what he's going to do. Even in a shorter ring, a bigger ring, or whatever, he's going to try and do the exact same thing. But the smaller ring allows him to get that off.
It just boggles my mind that Eubank's agreed to that. Just hearing what you're both saying there.
He's got a few quid for it.
Maybe.
And he might not be worried about Benn's power. He might just think, you know what, I'm gonna, if they're gonna offer me a few quid to shorten the ring, I'm not fussed. That's fine. He boxed behind the jab for maybe one round in his last fight before Eubank started holding his feet and throwing uppercuts from silly positions. It's neither of them particularly tactical fighters. They both will enjoy having a scrap. I just think that
it's a pub fight.
It's a bit of a pub fight. Yeah. It's a bit of a scrap. I don't think either of them. There's disadvantages for both of them in terms of knocking the other guy out. So I just think you've got potentially a messy fight. I can imagine there being quite a lot of holding.
Ref's going to be key, isn't it?
Ref's going to be important.
Be key.
Yeah. There's potential for things like if you want to back stuff like to be knocked down or number of knockdowns in the fight. There's potential for both of them throw shots and throw themselves off balance. Yeah. So both of them do wing shots in, throw themselves off balance, and throw shots from awkward angles. So there's potential for that sort of thing if you want to back Eubank to be knocked down. But for me, I think there's the best play in terms of betting is looking at later rounds for Eubank or distance fight.
I like multiple knockdowns because you're 100% right. Both throw shots off balance. Both are wide open. Yeah. Conor's wide open for that Eubank uppercut. There's definitely something there regarding multiple knockdowns in the fight.
For sure. Eubank not being worried about Ben's power as well. I mean, let's just hope he doesn't end up with egg on his face. Come on, boys. Come on, boys. Nice. Come on, boys. I'm here all day.
Ben had one little stretch where he looked, dangerous. For most of his career when he was younger, he was overwhelming, fairly poor level, opposition. Yeah. He stepped up a couple of times and went the distance with people like Formella and those types of fights that were, he didn't look amazing. And then he blasted out a very old Chris Algieri who was semi-retired and, Chris Van Heerden. And, during that period, he was eating a lot of eggs. Yeah. And then,
and do you know something? That's a big asterisk. And I know that it's been brushed over a lot this week, but that is huge. Yeah. He was struggling with European journey level guys. Like Cedric Pernod came to the York.
That's fight him twice.
Right. And he dropped him twice early in that fight, didn't he? I know Conor got up. Yeah. He came through. He ended up getting the decision on the card after dropping Pernod himself. But that version of Conor compared to the version of Conor that stepped in with Chris Algieri, they're poles apart. Yeah. Now, what we know from October of 2022 with the 2 failed tests, has that had an effect on those fantastic performances where he is showing the power, where he is knocking people out? Because the 2 fights that he's had since in the gap in America, he was hitting those kids clean on the chin. And they were going absolutely nowhere. Okay, the weight's gone up, so maybe that's part of it as well. He's never fought at 160. Is that power going to go up? And with the supposed enhancements, is that power there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Interesting point. And do you know what? Let's move on to the fight itself. Let's zone in. What I'll do, we'll do a little exercise. You've got your picks. Yeah. Let's get those picks. And then tell me how you feel about those picks. And maybe pick some of your own. How about that? We'll do that.
I'll tell you what I'll do first. I'll give you some of this.
What if I agree with everything that he said?
Then we'll end the show there. We'll just end it there.
Okay. Let's just get on.
What was you going to... Go on, Pete.
What I'll do first, I'll just tell you some of the betting splits that we've got in terms of the prices and also some of the popular bets that we're seeing through oddschecker. So Eubank Jr is a favourite 4-7, which means that bookmakers think he's roughly got about a 63% chance of winning. Okay. Conor Benn is 6-4, which is that sort of 40% chance of winning, and then you've got a 16-1 for the draw. In terms of the betting splits that we're seeing through oddschecker, 52% of the bets are for Conor Benn at 6-4. So you've got a slight favour towards Conor Benn in terms of the betting that we're seeing. Yeah. A lot of that will be because the price is a bit longer. People are looking who are more casual, looking to place a bet, thinking,
trying to get me back.
I want to bet something that's going to actually get me some money. If it wins. Whereas that 4-7 for Eubank is fairly prohibitive. The most popular bets that we've seen through oddschecker have been a Benn decision. Has been quite popular. Okay. There's 2 sort of slightly different markets: Benn decision or technical decision, and then Benn on points, and they're the 2 most popular bets. So I'm not really sure how I feel about that one myself. But
Is that because they're long?
It's because there'll be people looking to take on Eubank, and they're longer priced than just backing him outright to win.
They want a bit of money, they want to get something on the back of the fight, don't they? They want a nice Saturday night out. I
exactly.
think.
You want to pay for your Waitrose. So,
yeah, exactly.
So you've got and then Eubank KO or TKO is the third most popular bet, which is probably a bit more in line with what you might expect.
Okay.
So that's sort of where the betting is at the moment.
But where's your head?
Where's my head?
The expert, the analyst.
Yeah. I think looking at all the data and all the stuff we've talked about, already, I think Eubank decision is a fairly. I do have the price here. Sorry, I've lost it. Yeah, Eubank decision is 3-1, which I think is a fairly good price. We've talked about Conor Benn not, after 4 rounds, not really looking like a sort of fighter who's going to get somebody out of there. That's when he's down at 147 with fairly, mediocre opposition. He's gone up for 2 fights at 154 in America post Eggate, and he's not looking like a big puncher.
Yeah.
Eubank's bigger than him. I don't see him. I'm ruling out, for me, Conor hurting and stopping Eubank Jr. But I'm also thinking Eubank Jr. doesn't look like he's the sort of fighter who's going to stop Benn, because Benn is strong. Benn is game. He can box. So I think you're looking at a long fight and a distance fight, and I think 3-1 for Eubank Jr. to win on points is a good bet.
Ooh, Ad.
That's where I'm at.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Should we do it then? Should we end the show there?
No. Listen, I think we know what we're going to see.
Yeah.
You know that Conor's going to come out. You know that he's going to throw the kitchen sink at him, and you know traditionally that after that 4-round period, he doesn't look as great as he does in the first 4 rounds.
Yeah.
And I keep coming back to Chris Eubank Jr. in this. Where is he at now in his career, physically, all those types of things, and where's he at mentally? Can he be bothered? I've seen him on plenty. I've seen him plenty of times fight, come out, look brilliant for 2-3 rounds, then he goes for a walk, and you think, mate, stop playing with your food, take it, eat it.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Whereas there might be an element of, I've got 60,000 people here, and I want to do a bit of showboating, and I want to show off a little bit.
Surely.
He shouldn't, but this is Chris Eubank Jr. He's a very different human being to us 3 sat around this table.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I think this is going to go into the second half of the fight. If I was going to put guaranteed money down, I would edge towards Eubank coming through on points, like you said, on 3-1. But then I'd look at round betting. I'd look at maybe from 9 onwards, where, if we want to talk nostalgia, that's where his dad took out Nigel in the first fight, wasn't it, in the 9th round? So if you want to look in and around that onwards, that could probably be somewhere as Conor ties down the back.
That's another bet that I've got down here, which I quite like as well. 9-12 for Eubank Jr. is 6-1. So that's a bit more juice.
You like that?
Yeah, I do like that one.
That's and you could even take Eubank Jr. 7-12, so you get a few more rounds, and that's 13-5. But I think the 6-1 on 9-12 is a good bet.
I agree with everything you were saying regarding Conor winning on points. I just can't see that
too
scenario.
much work for him. I just don't see it happening.
I just can't see it. He's not long enough. No. With all due respect, he hasn't shown that yet. No. He has to show me something completely different in order to beat Chris Eubank Jr.
Is there a possibility that could happen? Points. That he shows that he...
Maybe.
Yeah.
Mate, there's plenty of times where I've thought one thing about a particular fighter and then they've gone into a fight and I've gone, blooming heck, they've levelled up.
Yeah.
That might happen, but it'd have to be a serious level up in order to win this fight on points, I think, for him.
Yeah. Well, Adam
his best chances, as I think you've said, are in the first 4 rounds.
Yeah. Adam agrees with you then. Any other bits of gold you got down there? Or?
In terms of for the headline fight, my main play is definitely Eubank decision, and then maybe a little sort of side bet on the 9-12, 6-1.
Yep.
If you really wanted to be cautious about it, I think you could back just the fight to go a distance at 13-8. But I think you're losing out. You're basically backing Conor to potentially win on points as well. And like we said, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I'll just take the Eubank decision.
Yeah, I like it.
And then 9-12. They'll be my main plays for the day.
I like it.
There are some other markets, things like you could have multiple knockdowns as a little side bet.
Yeah.
There's just a bit of spice in there if you wanted to.
I think there's a chance.
There is,
because both guys are tough.
Yeah.
And they will get up.
Yeah.
There's no way they're staying down. So you might get multiple knockdowns.
Yeah.
Ooh, well, let's hope that is the case. I'm hoping for a spectacle. Before we touch on the undercard, anything else on Ben Eubank, or have we covered everything? Nothing you guys want to get off your chest?
I don't think so. No, I mean,
it's fun.
It's fun.
It's fun.
It's fun.
Yeah. You're not tuning in to see what the dads did in the 1990s.
I'll tell you what's a question for you. Where do you think they go next after this?
It's a good question.
From Conor's point of view, I think he's got an inbuilt excuse. Oh,
Yeah.
well, I'm not a 160.
Yeah.
Let's get back down to 147. And
I think he can go back down though now.
it's going to be tough to get that weight off. Because we've seen it with so many fighters in the past where they put the muscle mass on, they've gone up in weight and then they've gone back down and it's not necessarily happened. For example, the one that always stays in my mind is Roy Jones. Flew through the weights, got to heavyweight, did it, then when he went back down, that's when he ended up having the struggles. And I think Conor, if he does do that, if he goes all the way back down to 147 where he's well ranked right now, I think he'll struggle. He might have to stay at 154, and I don't know what the pathway would be for him there. From a Chris point of view, I've been calling for years. You've had the opportunities to take on a Canelo, you've had the opportunities to take on these guys that you've been calling out, and then those fights don't materialise.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if either of these guys are going to win legitimate world titles.
No.
Maybe this is the one. This is the one where the bragging rights send you off into the
Elevate them.
sunset. Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, and if it's half decent, they'll do it again, won't they?
Of course they will.
They'll probably do it again if it's
Yeah.
half decent. If there's a result there that maybe there's a bit of controversy.
Yeah. Will we see Senior on Saturday? What's the
The way
likelihood?
he's been going on, you wouldn't think so, would you?
No.
I think his whole attitude is something. There's something around like his ego being bruised about him not being involved, and I think that's
Being in charge.
not being being in his corner, not being in charge, and not being getting into the ring in between rounds and standing there in his suit, and I think that's where all this is coming from.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
How good would it be though? Very WWF-esque if when that ring walk starts, simply the best players.
Oh my God.
And he comes out and does his own ring walk.
It'd be unbelievable.
It'd be sensational.
Top 10 moments.
The 10-year-old in me that watched that in 1990 just be like, we are back.
Yeah.
Here we
It
go.
needs that actually now. If I don't get that, I'll be disappointed.
Full on.
Okay, I think we've done enough on that fight. Let's touch on the undercard. I know you might have had some tips written down for us.
Well, I mean, not so much written down. You put me on the spot there.
Yeah.
But I've got
That's
a couple of things. I think the Clark versus Vida Riley bout is one that caught my eye as soon as I saw the prices, because Riley's a favourite for that. Vida Riley's favourite, and I was fairly surprised because Clark's obviously lost recently, but there's nothing in their resumes to say that like they shouldn't be almost 50-50. I think there's not a lot in there. I think there's a bit of juice in Chev Clark's price there, so that's one that if I'm not got a huge amount of betting interest in the undercard, other than maybe a little multiple play.
Yeah.
I think Chev Clark in there is definitely one that as an odds against bet, I think is a good bet.
Yeah. Vidal Riley, is this his first real test, would you say?
Yeah. Listen, I really like what Vidal Riley's done. He had an option there to go down the YouTube route, didn't he? Because he's obviously well connected with KSI.
KSI, yeah.
And he chose not to. He's chosen to come into what I would class as proper boxing and really prove himself. And I think he's done that to this point. This is a massive step up for him. I was surprised Chev lost that last fight, because going into it, I thought, right, he's been one of those guys in this weight division that hasn't really got the pomp. He hasn't really had the promotional backing. And I really like him. I think his feet are brilliant. I think his shots on the inside are superb. I think he's got a really good temperament. He's got a good amateur pedigree as well. So I was surprised he ended up losing in Monaco. Yeah. So his bit's going to be between his teeth. I think it's a really well-matched fight. Brilliant step up for Riley. Great comeback for Chev. I'm actually tipping that to be the best fight on the undercard.
Oh, hello.
I think it'll be a really, really good fight, that.
Okay, nice.
These Monaco cards throw in some fun,
weird.
People
They're fighting in a casino, aren't
people
they?
go to Monaco, everyone's sat there in a dicky bow in the crowd.
Yeah.
I don't know if it just sucks energy out of people because you get some really odd results over there. If it was me, I wouldn't want to fight in there. The amount of people you see go over there, get odd results.
Yeah.
Steer clear of Monaco. It's dodgy.
You heard it here first. Look, you might be onto something. Any other fights from the undercard? You got Billam Smith, you got McKenna.
Well,
Smith and McKenna's a good fight.
Yes. Well, firstly, Billam Smith.
Yeah.
Nothing but praise for Billam Smith because he never takes bad fights.
Yeah.
If you look at even from becoming champion, the defences that he had with Master Nike, he didn't have to do those. You could have had little tickovers and what have you, but he doesn't. He takes proper fights. He got a bit of an hiding last time out against Ramirez. Ramirez was fantastic that night. And again, I look at this with Glanton and I think you could have had a miles easier fight than this, mate. But he hasn't. He's come because he wants to try and get back to the top of the tree. Nothing but respect for Chris Billam Smith. I think that's a proper fight too.
Yeah.
I really like Liam Smith. I think this is a massive step up for McKenna. I really do. He's shown some really good promise. He's not been at this level previously, but it could be perfect timing.
Yeah.
Are you getting beefy coming down the hill? If he's getting beefy down the hill, this is a perfect propel for Adam McKenna coming into this fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
Really interesting fight. I think again, you don't know how good McKenna is. He's looked
great, hasn't
he's looked really good, and it could be perfect timing. And it's one of those things, sometimes you need that sort of fight. It's going to Beefy will come and he'll be tough, and he'll walk him down, and he'll be there to be hit. So it's just an interesting fight, and we'll see how good McKenna is.
Yeah,
where are you at with Yard Arthur 3?
Yard Arthur 3.
When I first saw it, I was like, these guys fighting all the time. They fight each other.
Yeah.
I don't really know why we're having it.
Same. The second one was so conclusive. I don't understand the reason. I think it's part of it is the spill out of Anthony Yard falling out with Queensberry for a period of time and maybe being out of the loop. Yeah. This is kind of maybe a showcase to get him back to set up maybe Boatsi or something like that.
You've done that a few times on the show. It's got nothing to do with it a little bit.
It might be something to do with coin. You can sell it because they are 1-1.
Yeah.
Lyndon Arthur did win that first fight, so you can sell it. But I just think
unnecessary.
Yard's another one who, every time he seems to get a bit of momentum, he seems to drop off then, and you just want a bit of consistency and to fight more regularly, and you'd like to see how good he is, because he won't fight at sort of just below world level. Then he jumps in with Kovalev, then he jumps in with Beterbiev, and you think, build yourself, a resume, give yourself a chance, So he's I'd rather him fight somebody. Boatsi would be a great fight for him.
Yeah.
I'd be really interested in seeing that.
Yeah. Thing is, when he does step up,
he looks good.
You think. Yeah. He's really good at him. Why does he keep coming down to this level then to yo-yo between
He's the only person, obviously, I forget his name now. Callum gave Beterbiev a good fight. Not Callum Smith. Callum Johnson. Johnson heard Beterbiev. He dropped him.
Yeah, he did.
But, Yard's the only person that I've seen really give Beterbiev things to worry about. I mean, that was great. But except for Bivol, except for Bivol.
You're excluding him.
Bivol's a freak from a different planet.
Those two are both freaks from a different planet. And Yard, he stepped up.
He had a good go.
And he had a good go. He hurt him. It was a good fight. It was back and forth. It was a great fight.
Yep.
And you just think, give yourself a bit of a chance. Box at a certain level, go up, and there's fights out there that'd be great for him. I think Boatsi would be a good fight. Callum Smith, these are fights that would be good for him.
Yeah. Sounds like we're more excited about the undercard, to be honest, than the actual main event itself.
Yeah.
No, I think once those ring walks kick in, mate.
Yeah. The adrenaline is pumping.
On Saturday, you'll be like, right, come on.
Yeah.
We've had 2.5 years of nonsense in and around this fight, haven't we? So let's see what's what. And you never know. Boxing always. It does every now and again throw up a little surprise. I mean, I'm fully expecting Chris Eubank Jr. to win.
Yeah.
That's what I'm fully expecting. But there's nothing better than being sat there ringside when you're thinking, what the heck is happening in front of my eyes?
Yeah.
This is wild.
Well, hopefully we get something like that. Yeah. So to finish then, lads, Eubank Ben, Eubank win, is it?
Eubank win, points.
And points?
Yeah, do you know something? I'm gonna go for the little 6-1 that you had there. So I'll go for the from round 9 onwards, Eubank.
I'm exactly the same as you. That's the best bet.
How boring are we? We needed a little bit of conflict.
No, but you know what? It sounds like that's going to be the way it goes, and I really like that as well. So, guys, thank you so much for watching the show. It's a special oddschecker talkSPORT bet show. I've been with Adam Catterall to my right and Pete Morris to my left. Thanks for watching, and don't forget that sign-up offer, £1 maximum stake. You can get 30-1 for Eubank, 40-1 for Ben. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply, and gamble away. Thanks for watching, everyone.